lot going on in the world of college football, obviously. The college football playoff announced. So let me ask you, let's start with this. Are you satisfied with the four teams that the committee selected, or do you think they could have taken a better route? Is there one team you would have subbed in, maybe someone you would have subbed out here, or is it looking pretty good to you?
I mean, honestly, Joe, I think everybody would say Alabama, that they're probably better than TCU, but at the same time, your resume is what your resume is, and TCU finished undefeated in the regular season. They lost in overtime to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. They were that close to being 13-0, and TCU deserves a shot, where Alabama did lose two games at the end on the final play to Tennessee and LSU on the road. And they won the Texas game at the end earlier in the season. They probably should have lost. But we know how talented Alabama is. But at the same time, you're asked to win all your games, and Alabama didn't. They lost twice. And Ohio State, their only loss came to Michigan, who, of course, is in the Final Four. And, they did get blown out eventually in that game. Ohio State led early. But I have no problem with these matchups. The first time we don't have Alabama or Clemson in the college football playoff, which is interesting because people were tired of them for a very long time. Now we're getting new teams, even though really you had Michigan and Georgia last year playing each other in the Orange Bowl. So you don't have all new teams, but obviously Georgia, Michigan, they won their conferences. They're undefeated, so they're in. But TCU, we'll see what they could do against Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl. And Ohio State, Georgia should be very interesting considering Ryan Day, the coach of Ohio State, pretty much came out and was like, we thought we were dead in the water after losing that Michigan game. They don't play in the Big Ten championship, and now they have a second chance. They have some second life here against Georgia since obviously USC, they had an opportunity and they lost to Utah, so they got knocked out. But this should be two pretty good. But Ohio State, you get them in the rare underdog role here. So you wonder if Ohio State can knock off the champs in their first game.
Okay, so let me put this to you before we dig into it even further. So there's a bet out right now. I'm seeing you can get Georgia at minus 130 or the field at plus 112. Good bet on Georgia, good bet on the field. What do you think?
I'd go with the field here because I don't think TCU is going to beat Michigan. So it's either between Michigan or Ohio State to win. Obviously, if Georgia beats Ohio State, then they got to beat Ohio State and Michigan to win the championship, assuming TCU doesn't win. Michigan's in the revenge spot, and I know you love the revenge game, Joe. You love the revenge angle. But, Michigan, they're a pretty stout team, and they've looked good this year defensively. They're excellent, and they went into the horseshoe. They beat Ohio State already. So I would probably go field there on that one, some plus money to think that either Ohio State or Michigan would get two shots, that one of them could maybe beat Georgia.
So you don't mind Ohio State as an underdog then in that game against Georgia is what you're saying?
I don't mind them. No, I think that looking at it right now, I got to dig a little deeper, but Georgia's excellent. Like, you can't take that away from them. We know how good they are. That's one thing. They beat Tennessee handily in the regular season. They did not face Alabama. They beat LSU in the SEC championship, where I don't know if LSU was necessarily the best team in the West this year. LSU got in because they beat Alabama at home, and they beat them in overtime, and that's why LSU got in. But again, Georgia didn't face Alabama this season. They dominated Oregon early on back in game one, and Oregon was a pretty good team out of the Pac-12. But I'm not taking anything away from Georgia. I do think Ohio State, though, even though their schedule wasn't particularly tough, they had a sneak by Notre Dame in the opener. They lose to Michigan at home. Not a lot of great wins in the Big Ten because the Big Ten's a top-heavy conference. Yeah, they beat Penn State, but past that, there's a lot of not great teams in that conference. So I think Ohio State here are getting points, and again, second chance for them after losing the Michigan game. I think Ohio State has an opportunity, and if for whatever reason they don't beat Georgia, then Michigan, assuming they beat TCU. Look, Harbaugh and the Wolverines, that game last year, they were just run out. And I think now the second chance, maybe they could get Georgia. And look, the Bulldogs finally won that first SEC championship under Kirby Smart. Remember, they didn't win it last year. They lost to Alabama before beating them again in the national championship. So I'd go with, Joe, to answer your question, I'd go with the field. I'd take a shot. Hopefully one of those two can beat them in the two games.
Yeah, take a shot on the field. I just hope we see some competitive games because you got to get some total ass kickings in at least the semi-finals.